A little over a decade ago, my father passed away. I can't remember if it was that same night or the next, but I had this very disturbing dream. I was back at the house I grew up in. It seemed like there was a party going on because there were a lot of people there and loud noises. I didn't go outside to see, but you could hear all the people talking. And music in the background. I'm sitting in the living room and just observing everything going on around me. My grandpa was sitting there as well, and he starts talking to me. I don't really remember what we were talking about, but that's when I see him. My father is standing right there looking at me. I was so filled with emotion I start crying uncontrollably. Then my father comes to hug me. It was like he was saying goodbye. However, it occurs to me that he doesn't want to let me go. I'm not crying anymore, and instead panic starts to set in. I'm trying to break the hug, but he's just holding on too tightly. In real life, I start to suffocate and can't breathe. I somehow manage to wake up and I'm gasping for air. It was the similar feeling to almost drowning. I'm freaked out and crying, hysterically, because I don't know what the hell happened to me. At the same exact moment, me and my wife hear my son crying hysterically in his room. I didn't tell her what happened to me, not yet. She goes to check in on him, and when she comes back, it gets even more terrifying. My son said he woke up because he had heard me crying, but something else caught his attention. There was a shadow figure standing in the hallway right by his door, staring right at him. He said it was my father. He said it scared him so much that he started crying because it just stood there watching him. I can't explain what my son and I experienced that night, but it was truly terrifying.
I work at an elementary school. Back in January, I came in on a Saturday to get some stuff done before the kids returned from Christmas break. There was only one other person in the building, another teacher. We walked in together. Our cars were the only ones in the parking lot. The playground is fenced off, and the neighborhood kids can't get in. We checked. I had been in my room for about an hour when I heard footsteps in the hallway. I assumed it was another teacher, so I glanced into the hall, but it was empty. I texted coworker, but she was still in her room 2 hallways over. Another hour I hear footsteps, but this time it's coworker, and she looks freaked out. She said she had heard footsteps and someone talking, but no one was there. I told her what I had heard. We quick checked the parking lot and playground, and we laughed it off, deciding we were just freaking ourselves out in an empty building. But then we heard children laughing, not in the distance, not muffled through walls or doors, but at least 2 kids laughing and running in the hallway with us.
I was on a trip to Ireland with my mom's sister and nephew in 2016. We were staying in a small village called Allihies that was on the coast. We rented a 3-bedroom house. My mom and I had our own room, and my sister and nephew split the other room. My room was tiny, but it overlooked a pasture with sheep and the ocean. It was absolutely adorable, but there was a weird door that had a large dresser pushed in front of it. The door had step up to it, so we assumed it was a door to the attic. The first night, I was so excited to not have to share a room with my mom, who snores like a freight train, lol anyway. I kept having dreams that something was trying to open the door behind the dresser. I was half awake when I thought I heard scratching at the door. I opened my eyes, and nothing. I drifted off for maybe 2 minutes when I woke up 100%. 2 aggressive scratching under the bed. It sounded like a large dog was furiously digging under my bed. I pulled the covers over my head and just sat there not fully believing what was happening. Suddenly, the scratching stopped. I immediately stood up on the bed and leaped to the door. I ran and I got in the bed with my mom, lol. She was so confused to see her 18-year-old daughter jumping into bed with her, but I wouldn't tell her what happened until the morning. There were a few scratch marks under the bed. I didn't go back into that bedroom for the rest of the trip.
About 8 years ago, I was in Italy at my aunt's house, and we were playing with my toddler, 2 at the time, and we were tossing his little rolled-up socks like a ball in the kitchen. My aunt and I were on 2 sides of the kitchen table and my son by the kitchen door. He tossed the socks so that they flew by both of us down to the head of the table, where a chair was tucked in. My aunt and I both bent down to pick up the socks, but they were gone. They totally disappeared. We thought perhaps they rolled somewhere, else on the floor or landed on a chair, but nope. They were nowhere to be found. We immediately thought it was the spirits that are in her home playing a trick on us. Her home has had a number of strange, frightening, and a few aggressive supernatural things happening over the years, and just the night before, when we arrived, I was kicked under the dining room table, at separate times on the back of my legs. So we both thought it was him again. Hours later, after returning from an afternoon out, my aunt and I were back in the kitchen making dinner. My aunt was unwrapping fresh mozzarellas and putting them in a skillet. She had about 6 that she was unwrapping, and each time throwing the wrapper in the sink beside the stovetop and placing each mozzarella one by one in the pan. We were talking about how strange it was that the socks disappeared, and that we would probably find them in an odd place. My aunt raised her voice and basically started telling off the spirit to stop being a jerk and return the socks and to leave us alone. I got a bit nervous and told my aunt to not speak to it with an angry tone and to just ask nicely. I was scared it would respond aggressively. All of a sudden, I heard my aunt make a terrible, frightened sound. She was just about to put another mozzarella in the pan when the rolled-up socks appeared right there in the skillet. I've experienced other things, including my cell phone levitating off my desk to a heart-shaped rug in the middle of my bedroom, but this experience always sticks out as super bonkers.
Not me, but my cousins lived in a haunted house. What made it creepier is that their house was an old house way out in the Oklahoma Panhandle. If you don't know, the Panhandle is just flat plains for hours. They said it was named Chuck, and the house was well known in the town they lived in. The previous owner, a guy named Chuck, had died in a triangle-shaped room at the top of the stairs. Apparently, he was fixing it up and hit some kind of gas leak which killed him. I hate that room and it felt very off. It's been a long time since they lived there, so I'll recount the stories I remember. One of my cousins was walking down the stairs, tripped, felt something grab her, and heard a man's voice say, "Watch out." Plenty of other times, they would get locked out of the house. My grandma witnessed a spoon fly out of the sink as well. This was one of those old, deep sinks, so it didn't make sense. We only went up there once a year, but it never felt like you were alone. I'm sure there's more, but I can't remember.
I worked at a Blockbuster Music store back in the 90s. I would often close at night with a manager, and we would be the only ones there until we left. Co-workers often told stories of the place being haunted, but I put zero stock into it. Until one night, when me and a manager were closing, the office was open to a storage room in the back, and it had an old school telephone, hooked on the wall with an extended cord, so you could walk around the storage room with it if needed. 10F long cord. Me and co-worker were talking, and I happened to be facing towards the phone out in the storage room, probably 20 FT away. All of a sudden, the phone cord starts whipping around violently. I point it out to co-worker, and he turns before it stops. We're both mortified and get the hell out of there. My only experience, I feel, is truly genuine.